Now time for a very big interview this morning. July, usually a little early to focus on New York's mayoral race, but not this year. It's become a national spectacle as a controversial Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani leads in the polls and the prediction market. Former New York governor, an independent candidate for mayor, Andrew Cuomo, is with us here live this morning at the table here in Times Square. Good morning to you, sir.
Good to be with you.
Look, we've had so many business leaders come on this broadcast and say, what is going on? They don't love Mamdani. That was a surprise, I think, for a lot of New Yorkers. And yet he clearly is ahead in the polls, won the primary, beat the current mayor. I think the question now is you decide to stay in this. What do you need to do differently? What can you do differently than you were doing before?
Yeah, good question. First, frankly, in the primary, I made some strategic mistakes. I had a big lead, so I basically played prevent defense. And I wasn't aggressive enough in the campaign. I didn't debunk his ideas. I didn't put forth my affirmative agenda strongly enough. Then on election day, we had an explosion of these under 30-year-old Bernie socialist type, anti-Israel type voters that no one had seen before in history. The proportion that they voted. So that's what happened in the primary. We now go to a general. The general is a different audience. It's a different electorate. It's bigger. It's more moderate. It's more Queens, outer borough. You have independents. You have Republicans voting. So it's a totally different ball game in the general.
Okay, play the math out, though, because we have a lot of folks who like to do math here, who watch our broadcast, and a lot of people who are thinking about who they want to put money behind. And right now, they're looking at you. They're looking at Mayor Adams. By the way, they're looking at Sliwa. Like there's a couple of, and there's a view that if all of you are in there, you're just going to effectively give votes to effectively Mamdani or to the other. So if Adams comes out, for example, and you stay in, what happens? Meanwhile, if you get out and Adams goes in, what happens?
Yeah, well, I think that's the bottom line question, right? A multi-candidate field favors Mamdani because he's a socialist on the Democratic line. I'm a Democrat on an independent line, right? Because politics is all upside down in this country right now. But you have a lot of people who knee-jerk go to the Democratic line, right? It's about 70% of the voters are Democrats in the general election, and he'll be on the Democratic line. So multi-candidate field favors him. If you get down to a two-person race, certainly he can be beaten. Polls show I beat him now in a two-person race. But that means the field would have to winnow down.
Which polls show that? Because we also have looked at Kalshi and Polymarket, which are these prediction markets that put him in a significant lead, almost invariably.
Yeah. The prediction markets do. A Harris X poll came out a couple of days and shows that I beat him in a one-on-one race. But the question is, how do you get there, right?
To a one-on-one race.
Right. And Governor Patterson, former governor of New York, a few others made a proposal that makes total sense in my mind. That is, come September, who's ever stronger basically between me and Adams, that candidate should go forward, the other one should defer.
September 1st, September 30th?
Mid-September is what they were talking about, because then you really have to gear up for the November race. There's a Republican who would be in the race, but I think you could win with 3. With 4, it gets very hard.
We had Eric Adams on the show, and he said, when I asked him about it, he was a little chagrined that you asked him if he was going to get out of the race. He said, I'm the incumbent mayor. You've already lost to Mamdani. Make the argument for why it should be you instead of him.
Because he's unelectable. He did not, he dropped out of the Democratic primary, Mayor Adams, because he's just not competitive in the Democratic primary. And this goes way back, right? This is before he was indicted, before the whole President Trump pardon, conditioned pardon, whatever that was. New Yorkers had turned off on him, on his management of the city, the ongoing corruption. So he entered the Democratic primary, then dropped out because Democrats, especially after his transaction with President Trump, are very negative on him. So he couldn't run in a Democratic primary. But Democrats are 70% in the general, and you can't win writing off 70%. But it's not, you don't have to decide that now. In September, the proposal is who's ever stronger goes forward. I have said that if I'm not the stronger candidate between myself and Adams, I will defer because I think it's that important to beat Mamdani. And the inverse, I think, should also be true. Otherwise, to stay in, you're just a spoiler. You're saying, I can't win, but I'm going to make sure Mamdani wins.
Let me ask you this. Mamdani's success has come from what arguably was this sort of affirmative message that he was going to deal with affordability. Now, whether he can deal with the things the way he's described, I think is a real question mark, if not impossible, in truth. Having said that, I would argue that you made an argument about experience, and the experience being also that you were not the current mayor, right? I mean, at the time, I think there was sort of a view, the current mayor was in trouble, I'm not him, vote for me. By the way, we saw this play out in the presidential election. Kamala Harris and Biden said, I'm not Trump, if you don't like Trump, vote for me. What do you think is the affirmative message beyond the experience piece for what you can do to the city?
Yeah, look, I think the problem with New York City has been twofold. Number one, you've had an incompetent government. Basically, since Mayor Bloomberg, that's 12 years, where you just haven't had a competent mayor in charge. Second, in this city, you've had this shift to far-left politics that has paralyzed the government. So it's anti-development. You can't build. It takes 4 years to get a building permit in New York City. I built LaGuardia Airport in 4 years, right? This anti-development, bureaucracy, incompetence, anti-public safety, defund the police, leftist movement. And I used to say when I was HUD secretary, look, a city is either growing or it is dying, right? And New York is all about development. It's all about growth. It's about pro-business. It's about entrepreneurship.
But how much do you worry that that's not what the city is about right now? I mean, what does this past vote about Mamdani say about the city? What does it say about the Democratic Party? Just, by the way, the big shift in the way the Democratic Party across the country has moved. I mean, look, you were supported and endorsed by the Clintons. For whatever, for better or worse, it often feels that the Clintons are now out of favor. It feels that the Democratic Party is a different party today.
No, Henry, there's no doubt this is a microcosm for what's going on across the nation. And I think with President Trump, you've had this far-right movement, and now you have this corresponding extreme left movement. I don't think either are productive, frankly. But Mamdani basically runs as a socialist. Not basically. He runs as a socialist, right? And not a dress-up socialist. He's a genuine socialist. Sold everything is free, free education, free food, free this, free that.
By the way, just said, there was an article that just came out that says that where he said capitalism is theft.
Yeah. No, he is anti-capitalism. And he has been. It's not just for this campaign. He's purely a socialist.
So do you believe there are enough Democrats who believe that capitalism is not theft in the city?
In the city and in the nation, because this is a much bigger issue for the Democratic Party.
You're exactly right. First of all, you can't have a socialist city in a capitalist nation. That does not work, right? You can't have a city where you say everything is free, we're going to have hyper-tax wealthier people, and expect them to stay here, right? They'll move. They'll leave. They have been leaving, right? Especially post-COVID, they're more mobile. So that's what he is selling. Now, he's a smooth salesman, and he's got slick slogans, freeze the rent, and fast free buses, and, politics has become so superficial now, and my fault, my campaign didn't really push him on it. And the Middle East issue was very big with those under 30 voters. So that's what happened in the primary. I do not believe in the general election you can sell that.
Right.
We are not socialists, right? Even in New York, we are not socialists. Even Democrats, we are not socialists. And they get it. You know, New Yorkers are savvy. Everything free. You know, if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably not. There is no free lunch. They get it. But we have to have that dialogue.
You said the Middle East situation played a role in this. And I hear from business leaders all the time about what they fear, not just about the socialism piece, but what they think of as anti-Semitism coming from Mamdani, or a sense that he would allow anti-Semitism to flourish in the city. So let me start with a very basic question. Do you think he's an anti-Semite?
You know, Andrew, that requires the ability to look into someone's soul. Are you anti-Semitic? Are you racist? Are you a bigot? I can tell you this. He fuels anti-Semitism. I mean, something as basic as globalized intifada, which basically says kill Jewish people globally, period. He refuses to condemn that statement. Most he will say, if they're getting pushed and pushed and pushed, well, I'll discourage the use of it. He doesn't believe in Israel as a free Jewish state. I mean, these are very basic things. And this has been core to who he is. We have the largest Jewish population outside of Israel.
Right.
And we have some of the highest level of anti-Semitic activity in the United States of America. So, yeah, people are scared, and they should be.
Do you feel that you're running against him or Eric Adams in this moment right now?
It is against Mamdani. I do not believe Eric Adams is electable. I think all the data shows that. I think him not getting into the Democratic primary shows that by his own actions. You know, if you can't run in the primary, you can't be competitive in the general.
You raised a lot of money before the primary. How is that going now? How are you able to raise money from big donors?
I am, but I tell you the truth, one of the lessons I learned, I spent too much time raising money in the primary. People know who I am. They know my message. It took a lot of time because in New York City, you have very low levels of donations. So you have to do a high volume of fundraisers. And that took a lot of time. And I'm focusing now more on just getting the message out.
Do you get additional voters to register the way Mamdani does? And if so, who's the target audience?
We will register more voters, but by the natural movement now in the general is you have a much larger pool. And I believe Mamdani, the way he activated the under 30, he's also going to activate the people out there who are afraid of an anti-Semitic socialist.
So we had
right.
something like 1 million votes in the primary. The last general was only 1.1 million. You think it's going to be a much higher turnout?
Yes. You had a higher primary turnout than usual. I think you're going to have a much higher general turnout than usual because, don't kid yourself, people are afraid of him.
Let me ask you
He is radical.
Let me ask you about Adams, though. The track record of Adams is actually not bad. It's actually quite good. If you look at what's happened to the city over the last 2 years, I think people would say safety has become a lot better. I mean, there's been a lot of metrics you could look at in a positive way. I think the big overhang on his candidacy is that a lot of people look at him and think that he is being held hostage by the White House, by the president, and what that means for the city. What do you think that means for the city?
Well, first, they don't get past your last point. Adams got indicted. He made an arrangement with the president, which is unprecedented, right? January 6th, he gave people a pardon. He said, go home. With Mayor Adams, he said, I am going to drop the charges so you can cooperate with my administration, specifically when it comes to immigration policy, and the prosecutor reserved the right to bring the charges back. So it looked like a transaction where Adams was bargaining for Adams, saying, drop the charges, I'll do what you want. And President Trump is not popular, decidedly not popular within the Democratic electorate. So that's point one, and that's fatal. Number two, there's been a series of corruption charges, almost on a weekly basis. More are supposed to be coming. And third, Andrew, I don't agree with you that people think the city is better. Maybe marginally better. You know, murders and shootings are down. Thank you. But rapes are up, and robberies are up, and grand larceny is up, and homeless, mentally ill people on the street that I'm afraid of, and the subways and the condition of the subways. So no, New Yorkers are not going to vote for another 4 years like the past 4 years.
Somebody made a fascinating argument to me about Eric Adams and his relationship with the president as it relates to being a positive for the city. I want to posit it with you. We have not seen in this city ICE arrests and raids like we have seen in L.A. and Chicago and other cities. The National Guard has not been called in. And the question is, why is that not happening in this city? There is a speculative view that that's not happening because the president doesn't want it to happen to protect him. Do you think that's true? And do you think if you win or Mamdani wins or somebody else wins, that all of a sudden the city is going to turn into some kind of National Guard ICE raid scenario?
Well, there's two theories, neither of which works ultimately. First theory is the president doesn't have to send in anyone because he has Adams doing his immigration work, right? Adams is in lockstep with honing in his whole immigration team. So, of course, the president doesn't have to send anyone in because he owns the New York City mayor who is executing Trump's policy, which is opposed by the Democrats. Second option, President Trump has recently said, I'm sending in people. He had Homeland Security Kristi Noem come in here just yesterday or the day before and was adamant that they had to send in federal troops. So, you know, with the president, you're not really sure which way it turns out. But neither is good. Neither Adams is the proxy for President Trump. That's the kiss of death among Democrats, and Democrats are, again, 70% of the electorate. Or the president winds up sending in the troops like L.A., and that's even going to be worse, because then you'll see the Democrats just explode.
Have you met Mamdani, by the way?
I'm on the debate stage.
But that's it?
Yes, he's been an assemblyman. He's 33 years old. He passed 3 bills. He was basically a non-entity in the Albany legislature. He was basically absent, and this is what he does. He's an social activist, advocate, smooth salesman, slick slogans, and left unchallenged, they buy it, right? It's the infomercial that comes on at 3 o'clock in the morning. 1 pill. Lose weight, increase your libido, live to 100 years old. Order now, get 2 more free.
And finally, what's your relationship like with Eric Adams? So, because you guys are going to have get on the phone at some point, I assume, come September, and there's going to have to be a decision made about who's going to, you know, take the torch and keep going.
Yeah, but I think that is what it's going to be, Andrew. You know, he's out there campaigning. I'm out there campaigning. Do the research whenever you want in September, first week, middle of September. Who has a better shot against Mamdani? That is a quantitative question. You can figure it out. And if you believe that it's really about stopping Mamdani, which I genuinely do, then do what's in the right interest of the city. And the strong one goes ahead. The other person defers. Otherwise, you're just a spoiler, and you're driving the car off the cliff with the family inside the car.
Governor Cuomo, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Fascinating conversation. Come on back as this progresses. We appreciate it. Thank you.